All right. Thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the author of Love, Hope, Lyme. Family members, partners, and friends who love a chronic Lyme survivor need to know. You can find this podcast if you're listening to the audio, of course, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you are listening on Apple, please go up, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Go up, give us the thumbs up, give us a comment, subscribe, etc. Listen to some of the past shows. We've done nearly 40 shows, and Michelle, people are listening and they're viewing, which is great. On the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast, I complement what I wrote about in my book, and I bring on guests who could talk about not just what family members, partners, and friends need to know, but Michelle, the biggest audience has been Lyme survivors, chronic Lyme survivors who are looking for support, who are looking for ways to let those in their life understand what they're needing right now, and ways to ask for it, ways to demonstrate it, etc. So I'm excited today. Just for people's background, if they don't know, I run an organization. It's called the Institute for Excellence in Sales. And I also host a podcast called the Sales Game Changers Podcast. One of the big things that we do at the Institute for Excellence in Sales is we work with high performing sales professionals around the globe, people who have successful careers at companies like Amazon, Hilton, Salesforce, Oracle, and they are high performing. And our guest today, Michelle McKinsey, she runs Balancing Life and Lyme, and she works with high performing women to help them balance their life and achieve what they need to achieve, maintaining a career while also battling the disease. And it fits in perfectly, to be honest with you, with what we're doing professionally with our women in sales programs. So, Michelle, I'm excited to talk to you about what you're doing. Why don't you give us a brief introduction about you? And I know you have a program we'll talk about through today's podcast, but get us introduced and let's get started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fred. My name is Michelle McKinsey. I'm a licensed integrative therapist, which means that I have training in integrative medicine for mental health professionals. So I use that in the work that I do to provide a very holistic approach to mental health. And I'm also a Lyme coach. I have my coaching business, Balancing Life and Lyme, where I work with professional women who are struggling with chronic Lyme disease to help them just navigate the overwhelm, the stress, the isolation, so that they can confidently assert their truth, advocate for themselves, be more productive, gain more energy, and essentially manage their medical treatment so that their bodies can heal. And oftentimes when you address these mental, emotional, and even spiritual aspects of healing, you'll see that your body can actually heal. It unblocks those things that are blocking your body's ability to heal, and you heal faster. So that's what my program is all about. And I'm also a Lyme warrior myself. I've been there, I've been through it. I've been in remission for 5 years now, and I've been able to maintain my career and start a business in the midst of dealing with all of this. I'm bringing in my professional experience as well as my personal experience to the women that I help.
You know, being successful in a career, in a business career, or whatever the career might be, is hard enough. I mean, there's challenges with as you continue to grow because of whatever the reasons might be, macro challenges, of course, related to the pandemic. And of course, with women, a lot of it's managing the home and the children, of course. And,
Mhm.
you know, I hate to say this, but being a woman in a man's world, I also do the podcast, the Sales Game Changers podcast. And about a third of our shows are focused on women in sales. And a lot of times they're VP level at great companies, and they always talk about how they were the only woman in the room, and
Mhm.
the challenges that they go to be seen and heard, etc. And
Mhm.
then adding a disease like Lyme disease on top of that, it's it's a remarkable challenge that they to get to any level. I remember once I not interviewed, I get a lot of people who reach out to me because of the book and say, "Oh, I have a friend I'd like to introduce you." Someone about a year ago introduced me to a woman who's a VP of finance for a very large company. It's a Fortune 50 company. And she told me she had chronic Lyme. And I'm like, how could you possibly be a VP of finance for a
Mhm.
global 50 company? And she said, She's done at 5 o'clock. She doesn't work at all on weekends. She gets
Yeah.
her work done. She balances it. So I guess the first question, Michelle, is can professional women really have it all, even if they're challenged with Lyme disease?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And I think the person that you mentioned is a great example of that. I think it is essential to have good support in place to feel confident to advocate for yourself, whether that's at work with the accommodations that maybe you might need, or at home with your family. Letting them know what your limitations are, what your needs are, delegating those tasks. And ultimately, as you're the person that you mentioned is doing is pacing yourself, making sure that you give your body time to rest and attend to that self-care. But yes, absolutely, it is possible to have that career and manage your health as well.
So we're going to be talking about ways to do that today, of course, and that's something that you coach women on, I presume.
Yes, I do.
So managing stress. So stress is a big word. It comes up all the time, and uh, I've asked a lot of doctors, like, what triggers Lyme, and a lot of times it always comes down to stress, and stress could be
Yeah,
big, like the
yeah.
pandemic, a car crash, something like that. It could be something small, like a bad day at work, right?
hmm
Or something that happens to a family member, whatever it might be.
hmm
Um, Managing the stress is a huge part of chronic illness healing. Talk about stress and talk about some of your tips for managing stress.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Stress is such a crucial component in health and wellness. So the more stress we have, the more likely we are to have physical ailments. Stress often manifests physically. We have stomach aches and headaches. We have, a rapid heartbeat and just all of these things that happen. And when you have that chronic stress, the body is chronically inflamed, and that sets off or can set off a cascade of conditions, and particularly things like Lyme disease that can remain dormant. The immune system is able to keep it in check for a while everything is healthy and running smoothly. But when you add in that stress, that just is like system overload for the immune system. It can't handle it anymore. That Lyme or the tick-borne disease just flourishes, and you have just such a huge problem. So managing stress is really, really important in healing. Pacing, as I mentioned, is really huge. When you don't rest, your body can't deal with stress. So rest and pacing is very crucial. I think it's very important to proactively manage stress and doing things on the front end that help you build resilience towards stress, because stress is always going to happen. We can't avoid it. It's part of life. But things like diet and exercise, the right supplements, of course, medications for your Lyme disease, making sure you get sleep. Even things like socializing is an important part of managing stress. You can practice things like mindfulness or meditation, and just making sure that your mindset is in the right place, that you have a positive mindset, a helpful mindset. So those are things proactively. And then some of those things also apply for managing stress in the moment.
Mm.
But we need to be able to handle those stressors when they do come up. So things like grounding exercises, things that connect with our senses and ground us into the moment, deep breathing, mindfulness, as I mentioned, spending time in nature, going outside for a walk when you're feeling stressed, or even just having time with pets or with family or friends, and hobbies, all of these things that help us to feel calm and relaxed and grounded.
You mentioned the term Lyme warrior. So warrior, explain what that means. And is that the mentality that you need to be a Lyme warrior? Talk a little bit about that.
It's the mentality that I've adopted, and I think that it helps a lot of people to think of it almost as a battle, as something that you're fighting against, something that you do have the power and the strength and the ability to overcome. And once you do overcome it, once you're in remission, it's just kind of like, yes, I have won that battle. I have done it. I am a warrior and I have survived. Yeah. I think that that mindset is just so helpful to give you the mental strength and resilience to get through the terrible disease that Lyme disease really is. Yeah.
So you're working with business women who are also looking to balance life and Lyme. Uh,
Mhm.
how? What is your advice for a woman in the workforce? Should she share her medical issues with coworkers or her
Yeah.
management at the office? Do you tell them hide it? What is your advice? And not just your advice, what have you heard from your clients that works best for them?
hmm It's a tough question. I think every situation, honestly, is different and unique, but I think ultimately it's important to share that you have health issues so that you can get the right accommodations that you need to perform at your best. Accommodations are a right that we have by law. And so informing your employer that you do have certain needs and requesting reasonable accommodations is within your rights and something that you should certainly take advantage of. Whether or not you share that you have Lyme disease or another tick-borne disease, I think is something that you have to kind of think very carefully about, simply because of the controversy around Lyme disease, the misunderstanding around it, the stigma around it. You know, some people won't understand it. Some people will say, oh, I had a cousin who had Lyme and she got better after a week of doxy, you know, and other people will say, oh, chronic Lyme doesn't exist. You're not really sick, you're faking it. So you have to be very careful about, I think, about disclosing Lyme specifically, but absolutely disclosing that you have health issues, you know, keeping it general, and requesting those accommodations, because you have a right, like I said, to those accommodations so that you can perform at your best, to do your job and take care of your health.
For people listening, what might some of those accommodations be?
You could ask for a flexible work schedule.
Hmm,
You could ask for work from home, which is
hmm,
very, very popular these days since the pandemic. You can ask for modified duties. So if there's something that's non-essential to your job that is difficult for you to do, you can ask that those specific duties be passed on to another person. You can even ask to be moved into a similar position, something that you're qualified for, but maybe a similar position that is better suited for you and your health needs. So and of course, like workstation, that's the one that a lot of people think of as having like that ergonomic workstation. Oh, and another one that comes up a lot is food or drink at your desk. Some companies are very specific about those kinds of things, and you know, with Lyme disease, you need to be eating at certain times and taking medicine at certain times, you know, so it can be really essential to have something as simple as that, that can make such a huge difference. So there's a lot of things. There's a great website called askjan.org.
hmm.
It stands for the Job Accommodations Network.
Wow.
And you can actually type in Lyme and it will give you a whole list of suggested accommodations that you can request.
I never heard about that. It's called
Yeah,
ask,
yeah, it's really
askjan.org. Wow, good
It
for
has
you.
chronic fatigue, it has Lyme, it has all sorts of health conditions listed specifically.
I did not even know that existed. Michelle McKinsey, balancing life and Lyme. You work with many professional women, of course, and you help them balance their life and continue to be successful. You know, just kind of curious. I want you to share some of the major challenges that they're faced with. But for a lot of the women that you're working with, are they looking to progress in their career or are they looking to survive? You know, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, when you think about
Yeah.
women that are successful in the workforce and they're battling this disease as well, I'm just kind of curious. You know, do you see that some of them are striving to become C-suite level executives, or is it just I just want to keep my job? And then you'll talk about some of the challenges they face.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. I see people who have worked really, really hard to get where they are in their careers, and they don't want to give that up. They want to keep going on that trajectory. And that can be difficult when you're battling any sort of health issue, but I think particularly, you know, Lyme is particularly challenging. And then I also see women who say, you know, I just need to keep working. You know, financially, I need this job and I need to keep working. I need to, you know, not lose this job. I have to figure this out somehow. So I see both definitely. And I think both are doable. Both are possible for sure.
So you mentioned the very beginning, mental, emotional. You also mentioned spiritual sides of healing. Uh, from your work with a lot of these professional women, are they open to that side? You know, I've seen a lot of holistic doctor websites,
Mhm.
and you see that, and then you see yoga, right? And then you see those kinds of things. when women are professional in the workforce, are they open to the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of healing, or is it pretty much just get me cured? Find me some medicinal cure. What do I got to do to get rid of the pain, get rid
Yeah.
of the inflammation, whatever it might be? Give us some access to that, Michelle.
Yeah. So I think initially a lot of times uh our thoughts are, or women's thoughts are, just give me the medicine, give me whatever I need to get better. And I think that's honestly it's a typical approach to a lot of health conditions is, what's the treatment that's going to get me better? What's the pill? What's the magic solution? And Lyme is so much more complicated than that. And so a lot of women, a lot of people start on these treatment protocols, and maybe they're making a little bit of progress, or maybe slow progress, maybe no progress, and they start to see, what else do I need to be doing here? I'm missing something. And so that's often the time where they start to pay more attention to this holistic approach. And once they realize that just focusing on the physical healing isn't enough, then yes, they absolutely are open to all of this. And I have women that come to me just kind of like, give it all to me. I'm ready. I want to do it. Tell me everything that I can do to get better. Because they're fighting that fight. They want to win this battle.
All right, Michelle, we got time for one or two more questions. A third of their life is spent at home, right? And a lot of people, a lot of the women I'm sure you deal with are mothers and spouses. They might also be dealing at a certain age with caring for their elderly parents.
Mhm.
They were the teachers during the pandemic and the camp counselors, and they had to keep a full-time job, right? So there's
Yeah.
so many challenges. Talk about home life, and also talk about relationships with spouse and might
Yeah.
be parents, maybe it's children, siblings potentially. What should they be doing to make home life easier?
I think certainly educating their family or loved ones as much as they can about their illness, having them involved in doctor's appointments and, understanding protocols. I think all that education piece is really important for families to understand what a woman is going through. And once they have that understanding, also talking to the loved one or the partner about what they need, because things are very different now. You can't do all of the things that you were doing before. It's just impossible to juggle everything and keep up that same pace that you had before you were sick. So you have to lean on your family and your partner more. You have to tell them what you need. You have to delegate those tasks and allow them to help you. So that communication piece is really, really important.
I want to ask you about one specific emotion before we wrap up here: guilt. So
Mm.
when I first decided in 2021 to become more knowledgeable about Lyme disease, when I wanted to understand what someone in my life was going through, I went up to some of the Lyme Facebook groups. I Googled, Lyme disease spouse, things like that. And I
Mm.
kept seeing I'm guilty because I'm not a better mother, or I'm not a better friend or daughter or coworker or spouse, or whatever it might be. And I kept seeing the G word, guilt, coming up time and time again. Give some guidance, Michelle, for the people who are listening to today's Love Hope Lyme podcast on specifically dealing with guilt.
Yeah. So the principles of mindfulness tell us that we need to accept our current circumstances, let go of the past, and focus on the things that are still within our control. So to apply that to Lyme disease, it means that you have to say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. It's not where I was yesterday, but it's where I am today. These are the things that I'm able to do, and this is where I need help. And so it's accepting that this is what's happening right now. There are still things that are within your control, but you might have to do it a little bit differently. You might have to go about things a little bit differently. And it's okay that you are where you are. I think it's also important to remember that your current state, where you're at right now, doesn't have to be your permanent state, that this can be temporary, that you can access the resources, you can lean on people, you can use a holistic approach, and you can heal from this illness. And this doesn't have to be this way forever. So you can overcome this.
Before I ask you the final question about how women can take back control, again, we talked today with Michelle McKenzie. Balancing Life and Lyme is the name of her program. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your program or what you do before you answer the final question?
Sure. Yeah. So the Balancing Life in Lyme coaching program is a 3-month program. We work through all of the things that we've just discussed, the overwhelm, the stress, the isolation. I have a proven system that I've used with probably hundreds of people in the past that I've kind of put it all together into what I call the Balance Blueprint system. And it's all about how to, overcome that isolation, that stress, how to manage those emotions, simplifying your life. That's something I hadn't mentioned before, but how to simplify your life and make it doable once again. Just reclaiming that joy that maybe you've been missing. Succeed in your career, bond with your family. Getting all those things back. So it's a very holistic approach. There's lots of tools and resources available. There's a private Facebook group just for my paid clients. We do weekly Zoom calls. So there's just tons and tons of support and hands-on coaching that happens within this 3-month program. So I really try to think of everything and package it all very neatly and succinctly so that women have all the resources that they need in one place.
All right, very good. Like I mentioned, at my Institute for Excellence in Sales, we have a global women in sales program, and I can appreciate what you're doing in helping. I know the challenges that we talk about in our women in sales program. We don't talk about dealing with Lyme disease, the chronic Lyme disease, as much of a challenge as that is. So I applaud you for what you're doing. Wrap it up here. How can women take control back of their lives?
Yeah, so I think that women can take control again by honestly letting go of the need to be in control. Women who are in careers are often very much in control of their lives and the things that are happening in the workplace. And we have to let go of some of that control just a little bit. We have to be able to ask for help. Ascertain what exactly we do need, ask for that help, advocate for yourself, and then allow yourself to rest. These women are go-getters. They are, type A, just straight to the finish line, and you got to rest. I think it's just such a crucial part. And when you can do that and start managing the emotions and acknowledging the stress and proactively doing the right things with it, then you can start to heal.
All right. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Michelle McKenzie. My name is Fred Diamond. This is the Love Hope Lyme podcast.